Welcome to Between Two Clinicians, the podcast that gives you a backstage pass into the mind of two therapists. I'm Talia.
I'm Adam. We've spent years helping others navigate the complexities of their minds and relationships.
In this podcast, we're flipping the script, and we're sharing our own unfiltered insights. No topic is off limits, and no issue too taboo. We're ready to tackle the tough stuff with honesty and empathy. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Between Two Clinicians. I will be doing the intro today because it feels like the right thing to do, and I never really do it. So I'm not great at it anymore. I used to only do it, and I did it on my other podcast, but it feels right to do it today. And
it does.
Today's was about parenting, which is both of our passions. Even if we don't just, I've thought about actually switching my specialty though. At this point, I feel
Have
like.
you?
Yeah, I feel like it's time also with how much, and what we're going to talk about today, how much on social media, like millennials, boomers, corrective.
Absolutely.
I want to repair, I'm estranged, like it's like the hot new thing. So today, which you had a great idea, and I'll probably butcher it as I do, when you're an adult and you're repairing your relationships with your parents, but they can't accept anything negative, or what is it that you said? I already butchered it.
You didn't butcher it.
Okay.
So it came across a meme that I shared with a client earlier this week where
Love it.
It says, when you become an adult and
Yes.
you're reflecting on childhood experiences with your parents,
Yes.
and then it is these scenes from Unsolved Mysteries where there's
I never said that.
snapshot.
That never happened. I
That
love
never
that.
happened.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
never happened. It
Yeah.
was completely fabricated.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
there's all this, and you're like,
I've seen this
whoa, wait a second. Like one, and you nailed it when we were sort of teeing this up before we got in. You're like, yeah, when your parents are like, oh, you accuse them, right? And it's not even us accusing them.
Their filter is they're being accused, but really you're just citing a memory from your own brain. Yeah.
Never happened, right?
That never.
Like, when they're like,
I can't
remember
recall
how much
that.
fun driving to Bass Lake was? Those vacations, and you're like, Mom, you used to yell at us, and like I caught a Cheeto bag in the face once.
I joke. I'm like, that's literally what I talk about at EMDR 3 times a week. This is not funny. I did not like Bass Lake. Yeah.
Like, these vacations
the selective memory.
Fun. Like, and they're like, oh, yeah, fuck, these children.
Yeah,
these
or
days.
it's what's
millennials.
Fun? I loved it. Why didn't you love it? It's a very and I went into before we recorded, I went into like the analytic view of it. It comes from when your parent has not done enough of their own, which is most boomer parents, TBH, sorry, LOL. If you have not gone back and done your own integrative work and owned all of your quote unquote good and bad parts. So in object relations theory, there's good objects and bad objects. And we have the ability to relate to the parts of ourselves that we identify as good or as bad. If I'm well integrated and someone brings up to me, hey, mom or dad, 90% of my childhood was great, but these few things are, even if I'm wording it so kindly, these few things really hurt, or I felt missed and I didn't feel met, and, I really want to work through it. A defensive parent who splits off and occupies the all bad position, often you'll hear, after all I've done for you, I guess I failed as a parent. Nobody can be, they immediately get defensive.
Terrible mom.
I guess I was a terrible parent, right? And they go to list all the things that it's just like the basics so CPS doesn't get called and expect us to throw them a fucking parade. And it's like, yeah, okay, again, mom or dad, not what I said at all. All I said was, my childhood was great in some cases, but these things could have made it even better. And look what you did. You immediately made it about you. It's when the parent doesn't have a mature psyche or an integrated parts of both good and bad object in the self. And I'll read some notes in a moment. That's when you get that defensive response versus a parent. When you go to them and you share that, or they're able to apologize, or they're able to own it and go, wow, that must have taken a lot of courage to come to me and tell me that. Thank you so much for bringing that to my attention.
Absolutely.
What kind of repair do you need? Do you need a repair? Did you just want to tell me and let me know? How can I help? That even if I say that wasn't my intent, it's not going to land, so I don't even want to go there, but I can say that. Like, let me know how best I can support you in this disclosure, because I want to make a repair. And probably everybody listening to this is like, that would be my fucking dream if my parents could do that. you're talking to somebody who's been in therapy for over 17 years and dedicated their life's mission to parents and healing, and same
Absolutely.
for you. Like it can be taught. Good news, it can be taught, but the person has to want to go learn that lesson or enroll in the class metaphorically for you to have this successful conversation. But that's where it comes from, is your parents' own psychological immaturity and inability to take ownership of their own bad parts. So when they're confronted with it by the child, they fully occupy it and become an all bad object because they don't have the ability to see both sides, that you could be a good and bad person.
It's funny because I could, like, as you were nailing everything from a clinical position, and I could like almost hear like audience members checking out. And the reason being is, like, sometimes mom, dad, it's as simple as just saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry that you had that experience." Like, I don't need you to call out which part of me. I don't want you to identify as it the warrior or the sage or the child or the id. I don't need these signs. It's just, oh wow. Like, just to admit, like, yeah, I wasn't a perfect parent, which is also hysterical because, like, when I'm doing family sessions, a lot of times parents will lead off with I know that wasn't a perfect parent, but then when I reflect on memories, I want those memories to be grandiose. That, like, oh, yeah, I missed baseball and all that, but we always went on bitchin' vacations. Oh, yeah, I didn't show up for your recitals, but you always had the newest clarinet, the best this, and all the
objects.
And it's like, that's not, they're not dismissing all those things. There are many times your child's coming and saying, I wanted you, and you wouldn't give yourself to me in that capacity. Like, I love when you talk about the good and bad object. The way I've always conceptualized it is our capacities, right? So I want to believe that genuinely I'm a pretty nice person, I'm a pretty caring person, but that doesn't mean that I don't have the capacity to be an absolute asshole.
Same.
Or I lack the capacity to be vindictive,
ruthless,
vengeful, ruthless. Like, I can go there.
Yeah.
The lie that I tell myself is, oh, that's not a capacity I have. You know, I'm dad. I'm dad, so that doesn't get, like, no, even with a 2-year-old, there has been times where I've caught myself like, oh wow, like, you're kind of snapping at her. Like, I'm asking her to do something that there's just no way for her to conceptualize that. And it's not this tug of war. That same feeling that I have with my almost 2-year-old is the same feeling that parents have when they're talking to their 32-year-old. And it's like, well, no, what we're actually asking here is, we're not trying to demonize parents. We're not saying that parents are all destructive. It's just, can you own those moments when you're right? I failed you in a way. Like, I should have been a better person for you, and I wasn't in that moment.
Well, so many people are not prepared for the reality of what being a parent does to you.
Correct.
And when your child, as a child or as an adult, recounting their childhood, comes to you and says, you know, this wasn't great, I need a repair for this, I want an apology, or that's not a positive memory for me, and the parent gets defensive and shifts into, but look at all I've done for you, they can't take accountability that that's not what I'm bringing up. Like you were saying, I'm not talking, no one brought that up, I'm not talking about any of the T-ball or any of that. Again, sometimes a bit above, but the basic legal standards to not have child protective services called is just basically not neglect. That's like being in the just visiting part of the jail square of Monopoly. No one really wants to get there. Like, I want to be able to play the full board, put some hotels on Park Place, but I can't do that psychologically if my parents aren't there for me when I need them. And the ages that are the most important are the first 1,000 days of life, 0 to 3. If you get that right, it's really hard to have a fucked up life and adulthood after that if your parents were fully developed, fully devoted, buckled down, and were like, how I am with my daughter, you are my literal world, and I will see the world through your eyes and filter every decision I make. No, I'm not going to go on this trip. No, I'm not going to go away for that weekend. No, I'm not going to go, because I don't get these 3 years back. Correct. I can go on a trip in 5 years from now. I can't do that now because she needs me. She needs me less than when she was a newborn, but infancy lasts 3 years. So if your parents were like, oh, back to work, put you in daycare at 6 weeks, shit's going to be fucked. I'm just going to be blunt with you. And that is something that you have to do the repair of. They left you with. And parents, I'm not saying they knowingly, like, if parents knew the devastation that can occur in their child's life if you aren't there, aren't present, don't know how to attune or be attuned in those first 3 years. And then the second chance is adolescence from 9 to 25. So long window there to make repairs. If you miss both of those, do not be surprised when your kids don't want to be friends with you as an adult, don't want to be near you as an adult. And often the way that they treat you when you're in adulthood is the way that they felt like you treated them in childhood and adolescence when they needed you and you weren't there for them. And now you need them and they're not there for you.
The phrasing I always use is, if you make yourself an elective in someone else's life, don't be surprised when they believe you. If you made yourself absent, they are going to fill the void. They're going to find a way because life moves on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you guys were having so much fun. Like, this is, I navigate this a lot with my CEOs. My CEOs, highly successful individuals. And what ends up happening is they get 25 to 30 years down the road. They've run multiple businesses. They've made a boatload of cash. And then they recognize when they retire, they don't know their family. And their kids don't know them. And they don't know how to handle the process. And then they start buddying up. And a lot of times they start seeking those connections. But my whole relationship has been built on this like transactional nature. So it's like, do you want to come have steak and lobster? Do you want to go to the Caribbean? Do you want to do whatever this might be? I've got to provide gourmet experiences for people to be around me. And then what's interesting is then when they have to sit in the sort of fantasy that they told themselves that my kids were happy, healthy, whatever it was, and I could be absent. And you hear from these adult children now saying, well, wait a second, I didn't want space camp. I wanted travel ball. Like, I wanted time with you. How many times did we go on vacation and you were on the phone or on the laptop? And I think this is the other thing that we have to wake up to is like, yes, it is a blessing that like, no matter how we're doing as parenting. So yes, some days A+ parent, other days I'm a D- parent.
Right.
The blessing though, is that our children will still laugh in those D- days, right? What a lot of us internalize though, is we go, oh, well, they're laughing, they're happy, then I'm excused. Like I can show
they're otherwise occupied and it looks like other things are bringing them joy, which from an analytic lens, when the infant needs attuning to and goes to typically the mother is how it's written, but like primary caregiver, typically the mother, I go to you as an infant. I'm making a bid for connection. I need you and you're not there for me. You're physically not there, so you can't emotionally be there, or you're physically there but you're emotionally checked out. Both are equally as damaging. You're sitting there on your phone while I'm near the baby. You've seen the still face experiment that causes problems with attachment. When the child can't access, they split off and they learn to defend against the vulnerability, and they develop attachment disorders that we've talked about, like the attachment styles, but really from an analytic lens, it's an attachment disorder. Secure attachment's not a disorder. That's the goal. And that comes from, at minimum, what Winnicott said is 30%. The good enough parent, right? The role of, I'm really going to try and do my best, but 30% of the time, if I'm there to meet their needs, that can ideally develop a secure base. The bar's in fucking hell. You know how many people have attachment disorders? That means the parents were not at all even close to 30%, which is already an F, by the way. Like, let's try aim a little higher, right? Well, it's not even gradable, but like for some, for me, if I feel like my failure is like, if I am a 99%, for other people, they're like, nah, whatever. So like my worst days are probably most people's like, I wish I could have it be that high, but that's also because you and I have spoken. We'd read John Bowlby's A Secure Base, How to Have Secure Attachment, Raising Securely. We are steeped in this, and yet we still get it wrong. But honestly, on our worst days, it's still better than what a lot of other people get on other parents' best days, because they don't have that access to themselves of how can I give what I never received? How can I attune to my child if I was never attuned to growing up and I don't know the importance of those first 1,000 days to make eye contact while you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding and not be scrolling on the phone, not be watching the TV. If you want a great way to give your child an attachment disorder is to not be attuned those first few years and to try to sleep train under the age of 1. It's really going to fuck them up if you look at all the analytic research. And it's not to say that parents aren't in a headspace of I want my life back. Newsflash: when you become a parent, it's not about you anymore, pretty much forever, and it's not your life anymore. You have time when they're older to do a career and all of this other stuff. You will never get those first 3 years back. You will never get those 9 to 25 adolescent years. Oh, they're older now. They don't need me when they get home from school. If you're not there, whipping the door open for them. I've been so excited to see you. How's your day? Or even in teenage years when they go in and close the door and they come out and you're not there waiting to just be around puttering in the kitchen in case they want to talk, they will go back in and shut the door, not just literally, but metaphorically. And I deal with a lot of teens and parents now and adult children who had that in adolescence. My parents weren't there for me when I needed them. All I wanted was time and attention. All I wanted was time. And they were on their phone and they were traveling and they were this, and I couldn't access them and I couldn't get the care that I needed. And it leaves them as adults feeling wrecked and abandoned. And that's no way to go through adult life. And their adult romantic relationships are in shambles because of it, because of the lack of attunement their parents gave. You know, they didn't get attunement. They got a lack of attunement. So parents, if you're listening, and I'm a parent too, and so is Adam, like, wake up and go be attuned to your kids. And that's a great way to prevent these missteps moving forward.
Hey there, listeners. Are you tired of settling for less than you deserve in your relationships? Do you ever feel like you're not being seen, heard, or valued the way that you want? Or maybe you've been wondering why you keep attracting the same kinds of people into your life, or why certain patterns seem to repeat themselves in your relationships. The answer might be deeper than you think, and you can find it in my new course. Rewire Your Relationships is a transformative course designed to help you stop settling for less than you deserve and start embodying your most confident, assertive, and authentic self in your relationships. You'll explore how your early experiences and parental influences have shaped your views on love, dating, and self-worth. This isn't just about tips and tricks for dating. It's about understanding the core beliefs that drive your relationships that you attract. You'll learn how to break free from those old patterns and start creating the kind of connections that truly reflect who you are. Imagine stepping into a relationship with clarity and confidence, knowing you're attracting people who value and respect you for who you really are, your deeply authentic self. The Rewire Your Relationship course gives you the tools to rewrite your relationship story, one where you're no longer settling, but thriving. Visit taliabombola.com/rewire-your-relationships or check the link in the show notes for more.
I feel like sometimes people will hear what we're saying and they're like, oh, how can I ever get there? I think you have to start from this thought process of like, when we're talking about the attunement we have, you can get here. You're just listening to two people that have like 6 years of schooling, have somewhere between 15 and 18,000 direct therapy, direct client hours. Like there's things that lead us to like, okay, yes, I would be a shitty therapist if I didn't call myself out in my own life when I can see myself wanting to go maladaptive when I'm experiencing things. The challenge is like there has to be a starting place. Like and so we're not going to start from shame. We're going to start from empowerment. And I think that's when, like in a lot of these cases with my clients, when they go like, my parents don't recognize at all, right? Like the one that hits me most often is like, my parents don't recognize that their divorce was difficult for us because, we had the money to buy 2 homes, or we stayed in the same school. Not about material things. Whatever it was. But see, that's what we earmark when we're emotionally in a deficit. We go, okay, well, as long as the kids have new bikes and Xboxes and they can go to cheer club,
they have other things to occupy themselves because I'm not available or accessible because I can't even access myself. So how would my child be able to access me?
And what's crazy is when I've had breakthrough moments with like adult children and parents is like when it literally just came to them saying, I am so sorry that the divorce impacted you that much. That's right. It. We're not I need to acknowledgement rehash.
And I need ownership. Not, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry if I'm sorry the divorce impacted you the way that it did. I had no idea. Or I thought I did. And you know what? I shoved it down because I couldn't deal with my own discomfort and guilt and shame. And I shouldn't have done that. And I take ownership of that. Like yes, it can be learned. And I'm glad that you take the position because I know I can get like really intense on this topic specifically of it sounds like I'm shaming, but really I'm trying to passionately defend like it's an inconvenient truth. It's an uncomfortable truth. And if you feel guilty, good. Like guilt is a motivating emotion to make change in your behaviors if you feel like you've done something wrong. And I'm not saying sit in it and be, accusing yourself or kind of putting yourself in a courtroom of like guilty for the rest of your life. But like, if you notice this, if you are an adult child of a parent or a teenager, hopefully not listening to this, but like if you're in the child position, whether adult or young, and looking at this, you don't need your parents to say all these things to you to heal. You can read certain books and podcasts. I'll put together actually a resource list that can be very
wonderful.
healing, self-healing, and readjusting your expectations of your parents and understanding they have a limited capacity, and I have to grieve the parents I had, the parents I deserve to have and didn't get, and the parents I will never get if they don't go do their own work. And I'm also not going to hold out hope that they're going to do it or make my healing and freedom contingent upon their choice to go in and heal and do the repair. I may never hear from them. I'm not going to probably hear that repair from them unless they're doing the work. And if you're a parent listening to this and going, I don't want to mess up my kids, I want to have a close relationship, your child cannot be a mini-me of you. A parent's role is to do their own healing and finish their own business, ideally before they have kids, but as soon as you can while you have kids.
Possible to do also. Let's just put it out there.
But let's say you're like, oh, I should have probably, or I know I need to work on this, and that, and this, but now's a great time to have a kid. If you're in that phase, don't have a kid yet. Go do whatever you just listed that's beneficial. And yes, we can't ever be fully healed, but you could do the lion's share of the work. And if you're noticing like, wow, I lose my shit just like my dad or mom did on me and my kids too, and their frontal lobe isn't going to develop till 25, you have a long road ahead of you. You got to check yourself and go, what comes naturally is not parenting. What comes naturally is the way you were parented. And unless you go in and do the work to undo what comes naturally and learn what to do instead and what should have been done to you instead, you will continue to repeat whatever that is because your brain has it as procedural memory and it's the template. And as try as you might, and you and I are in the same boat, I'm imagining, I get frustrated. There's times I want to lose it, and now I'm channeling it into like, if she's screaming, then I scream too, not at her, but I'm just like, right? And I like join her in it because sometimes you need the release, and she'll laugh or she'll look, and it's about me having to do those emotional regulation skills. I wasn't taught by my parents at all. I had to learn in adulthood, so it doesn't come naturally, but I have to check myself and go, it's par for the course. She's literally a child. She has no clue, and it makes sense to get frustrated. Then I go right into the empathy of, I know you're sad because we can't watch Rah, Miss Rachel. I understand. What we're going to do, though, instead is talk about our feelings, have a big hug, go on a walk, get some fresh air. Like, to do that more often than not, that creates a new neural pathway. You can go in and do that for your inner child. And if you're the parent listening to this, you can start to change the way that you parent, no matter how old your kids are. And you can take the initiative and go to your kids and say, did I mess anything up for you? And only ask that if you're prepared and have done the work to not ideally get so defensive. Just let them share. Don't
ask the question if you're not willing to hear the response.
Of course. That's with anything in life. Especially this one. Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of times parents bait themselves into it, right? Like,
well, because they're expecting to hear all the accolades of how good of an object or good of a parent I was so I can stroke my good object ego, when in reality it's like,
it's very psychoanalytical. I asked the question to hopefully get the validation that I'm not telling myself. And then when I don't get it, then I'm in this different spot. Like, I think it's always interesting. It's when your mom has talked to one of her girlfriends and their one kid's in substance abuse, or there's some sort of thing happens, and nothing like that ever happened with us, right? And it's like, well, we don't have to have identical stories to say that there was still hardship and challenges.
Yeah.
But, where do I want us to take this? I think that what has to be sort of our non-negotiable is we need to start responding to these questions with statements of like, this was my lived reality, and I'm not going to start shaping it so that it's easier for you to sort of be acceptable to. And it's a challenge because you're going to have to watch your parents navigate disappointment, frustration, things like that. But how are we ever going to move into our self-confidence and our, assertiveness
adulthood
if we're going to be sort of meek and passive with how we
kowtowing to our parents still? And that the child, when you're an infant and a child, you have a choice this is more depth psychology and analytic based classic, but you have a choice between, do I choose my authentic self or do I choose the love of my parents? And because it's survival, most people will deny their authentic self, shove it way far down, become who everybody else wants them to be, primarily in the family system, or initially that's where it's learned in the family system of, well, I don't want to not have my parents' love, so I'll do what they say, I'll be how they like me to be, I'll behave, all this, I'll comply, because love means I survive, like the wire monkey experiment. And that gets turned on its head usually after adolescence ends around 25, the frontal lobe and then you spend the rest of your life figuring out who you are, who you were meant to be, and becoming that, and in perpetuity, ideally. And not every time will the relationships you have survive that reclamation of true self and connection of authentic self. Ideally, you can approach it in a way that invites the most amount that we're responsible for of non-defensiveness. Like, we can keep our side of the street really clean, pitching this to our parents or repairing a relationship, and not starting with you, not starting with only negatives. There's just, interpersonal effectiveness skills to be used. And past that, past you doing your due diligence, you have to tolerate the discomfort of the blow up, the storming out, the tantrum, the emotional immaturity and dysregulation. And Lindsay Gibson's book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and the workbook that accompanies it are one of my top recommendations for clients who had childhood emotional neglect or grew up with emotionally immature parents, because the parent wasn't parented in a way that they could eventually become an autonomous adult. So they weren't, the clients we work with, their parents, they were not parented by an autonomous adult. They were parented by like a child in adult's clothing, essentially, kind of like two kids in a trench coat, and then we're expecting whatever this illusionment is of what adults are supposed to be like, when our adult parents, who are the model, weren't even adults. Is there an adultier adult around? We don't know how to be till we relearn it. You don't have to wait for your parents to make that move. And if you make the move and they don't meet you and don't attune to you, shocking no one, because that's probably where this all started from, you don't have to then serve it back to them. You can set different boundaries, and you can do your own work in therapy to not let it derail you or kind of plague you for the rest of your adult life.
I feel like we get ourselves into positions where we sort of hinge the significance or the validation of certain lived experiences on whether or not someone will admit to the crime. Right? And the reality is, facts are not that weak. Like, when we know what we've experienced, when we know that it's not rooted in like the challenge of trauma recovery, but that these things happened, then me saying them out loud and someone dismissing them doesn't actually dismiss them for me.
I know
what it does. What it does is it really highlights what is the level of the relationship we're going to have. Like, I'm at the point where when people aren't willing to admit what they've done in the past, it just helps me understand the capacity I think we're going to be able to get out of this relationship. This may be one of those relationships like, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, we can sit down, we can have a meal together, we can be pleasant and cordial, but you're not a person that I'm going to trust on a deep dive. I'm not going to be the one that's constantly coming to you and sharing information. And it can be a challenge. But the reality is, I'm actually creating grace here. I'm not going to ask of you something you can't give me. That would be the opposite of grace or mercy, is me to demand you to act or behave in a way that you don't have a capability. And it's not my job to teach you or role model you how you're going to have that capacity. If it's interesting to you, then you'll invest in it. And that's why I always laugh at my clients after all the holidays. They'll come back and be like, my parents will never go to therapy. My brother doesn't want to go to therapy. All my family members think I'm an idiot for going to therapy. Well, why are we recruiting? We don't need to recruit. Like, that's fine. They can stay in their stuckness, and that's fine. But as you continue to grow, you're hostile to them. They don't like seeing you actually outperform the expectations they've had for you.
Or the ceiling and floor in which they've constructed that you can function in. It's like a little dollhouse. Like, you're good to do here. It's like when families are like, oh yeah, it's totally fine if people are gay, just not in my house. It's like, wait, what? Like, what a mixed message. Or like, it's fine outside of the house to keep up appearances, but if anybody in my family did this thing that's only okay outside, I would have a totally different reaction. So you never know which version you're gonna get, values wise or emotionally. If that's the case, then all the more reason. I mean, I'm very obviously defiant, rebellious. Like, all the more reason to be like, okay, well, I don't exist to please you, and I'm an adult in my own right, and I am going to be who I want to be, and take it or leave it. Not rubbing it in and trying to actively be so going against, but it's like, we've talked about it before. There's things that I don't share in common with my family of origin anymore, but we're still close, healthily close, because we don't go into those conversations. I don't play ball when I'm invited to on certain topics, and there's times where I preempt, maybe sometimes for my own anxieties, but I preempt and I'm like, nope, we're actually not going to go there. And my mom or my brother would be like, I wasn't even I'm like, just going to say it. I'm not going there tonight. I'm not
just
taking
outlining the boundaries, turning the spotlight on.
Right? Like, here's the new boundary. Here's what you wanted me to be, and here's who I am. And is there any overlap, or is it going to be separate circles? And do you want to get close and near, or do you want to stay far? Is like the pontification I will leave our listeners with. Just because you had to, in childhood for survival, sacrifice yourself for your parents' love does not mean you have to recreate that in adulthood. And I'm not saying cut off your family, but if you have to create certain space or create certain boundaries in which the relationship will look different if you still want to have one, that is more worthwhile to explore than going right for cutoff. And usually when cutoff happens, it's not you did one thing, I'm over it. It's so much repeated, please see me, please be there for me, and met with incapability of doing so, that the pain of staying becomes greater than the pain of leaving, or the pain of leaving can outweigh the pain of staying. It's like, okay, I gotta go. Like, I gotta pick one. If I'm gonna be in pain either way, I'm gonna leave and have the rest of my life to myself. Yeah, pick a lane, pick a pain. So that's my quip for what I will leave people with. And if you like this episode, let us know, because we can do more of a deep dive on it. But yeah, this is a very good topic. It's a very popular topic, and I'll go ahead and make the resource list for people. Awesome. So if you want that, I'll have it linked in the show notes, so you can do your own healing. So you're welcome. You don't have to book us for therapy and coaching, but you still should. Like, we'd love to talk to you. But if you want to do the self-healing, I support that.
If this is what we do for free, imagine what happens when you pay us.
OnlyFans. There's their tagline.
Yeah. I have had very few followers. No one's looking for a lumbersexual, but
yeah, well, after this episode, who knows? Repairing daddy issues, right? It could be very on brand. Yeah, that's really what I will leave people with is, I've thought about doing an OnlyFans, not actually OnlyFans, but just so people are like, oh, wow, awesome. And I'm like, and this is why you need therapy. And then it bemes an inadvertent group. I don't think it's ethical, so I won't, but it's a great stand-up comedy.
A little bait and switch where you're like, you came here for explicit content. Content.
Nothing's more explicit
what's
than
wrong
what
with
are your
mommy
relationship
issues? With your mom?
Yeah. Why are you here? How did she hurt you? Like, what? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
She's like a dominatrix, but she's helping me with my life.
Like an emotional dominatrix for good. Yeah, it's healing. It's gaslighting for good. Yeah. And on that
one
note,
of my veterans told me once, man, you're like an emotional prostitute and you're good.
You're good.
Like,
high class.
Yeah, you know.
High class.
I'm not your cheap girl.
Nope. I'm the black Amex. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, it's good. It's good. So we'll see you all.
Guys,
good luck. Hopefully you'll tune in, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Between Two Clinicians. We would so appreciate if this episode resonated with you, for you to share it with somebody, and also find your favorite podcast platform and like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. We would love to attract more listeners just like you and have this message be spread to whoever needs it. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.